Welcome to Conversations. My name is Jason Plotkin, and I am the Program Director. On Select Wednesdays, we get together and we have the show called Conversations, where we sit down with a member of the congregation, the community, or perhaps even from the sports world to discuss the current state of affairs. The feedback I've gotten from our congregants is they particularly enjoy when we have members of our congregational family or organizations that we work hand in hand with as a synagogue on the Conversation show. So this week it's Thanksgiving week, and I thought we would talk food, talk desserts, and we are delighted to welcome one of our own. That's dessert gallery owner Sara Brook to the Conversations today. Sara, welcome to our broadcast. How are you today?
I'm great. It's so good to be here. Thank you.
Well, we are delighted to have you, and I really want to hit on a wide range of topics with you. I feel there's so much to cover, but let's start with your story. I was reading your bio online, and of course, I've heard from your Mishpocha Myra about your baking career. So let's share with the audience who's watching who may not be familiar. What became your interest in baking at a young age?
You know, when I was literally a toddler, I had this babysitter, Mrs. Waldo, and she would read to me off the back of a chocolate chip cookie package. And, eventually learning to read became, making chocolate chip cookies. And, one thing led to another. I feel like my path was set because it wasn't too much longer when I was at nursery school at Mrs. Wagner's. That's where Trafton is now. And the highlight that I still remember to this day was when we got to make birthday cakes. And I was so we all got to take turns stirring the batter, and I thought I died and went to heaven every time we got to do that. And, then there was Girl Scouts. I still have my sash, and I have the baking, patch and the dabbler patch and top cookie seller for the Girl Scout Council several years in a row because I got a wholesale account. And, then baking for Hebrew school carpool. And, I was nom for Sweetheart of an AZA chapter and baking for friends in college. And so, literally, I think I was born with a baking whisk in my hand.
Well, that's really neat.
Not a silver spoon, but a baking whisk.
I love that. So what viewers may not be aware of is that Dessert Gallery was not your first business. You actually got into the dessert business at the age of 21. I think we all know that right out of college is a very different thought process to where you are now with Dessert Gallery. Tell us how you kind of started business and what you learned from the get-go there as a 21-year-old that has allowed you to be successful here as Dessert Gallery has established itself.
Well, it's hard to believe I learned anything when I was 21 years old because, you're kind of invincible when you're 21 years old. I didn't really have a plan. So I thought I would put off the real world by studying for the LSAT and going to law school. So that's exactly what I was doing. I was working as a paralegal at Hirsch and Westheimer. And I learned to register a DBA with the county at the courts downtown. And so I was pretty clear pretty quickly that, law was not going to be for me. So I came up with a company name called the Executive Suite. And I registered that name with the county on October 19th, 1983. And I was officially an entrepreneur before being an entrepreneur was even a thing. I went out, I got wholesale accounts, Vincent Mandola from Nino's was one of my first accounts, and Tony Vallone and Jamail's on Kirby used to buy one of my cakes and have it in their freezer section there. And of course, I lived and worked in the same place, which was my parents' house in Meyerland on Ruther Glen. I did the baking and washed the dishes and kept the books, and I took the orders and I baked everything. And I bought all my ingredients at Belden's even before it was in Braeswood Square. And, first, the business took up the kitchen, then it was the breakfast room and the dining room. And before you knew it, I had the whole downstairs. And so, of course, it was getting very uncomfortable. And like a 21-year-old, I went to my dad and said, hey, I think I'm going to move out of the house. And my dad said, no, move the business out of the house and then you can move out of the house. And so that's what I did. It was about a year and a half later. And I moved to my first location in the Bel Air Triangle. And those were good times. My grandmother worked with me 2 days a week. Florence Blum, many people, some of the, all the old timers would know my grandmother. And so then we, as we started needing help, first Mama's housekeeper came to work with us. Her name was Betty. And then we needed help, and Betty's nephew came, Danny Jackson, and my little cousin Sari. Her first job after high school was at the executive suite. And, I mentioned Danny. So 35 years ago, Danny and I started working together, and we still work together. People always ask me, how is your product so consistent? I mean, after all these years in business. And the answer is, I have the same person heading up the kitchen now as I did 35 years ago. And he's an amazing person. And, it's funny. So I started and sold 2 other businesses besides Dessert Gallery. One was the executive suite, and then Sara Brook Desserts. Danny was always with me. When I started and sold my second company, Danny actually worked at the Temple for a while. And before I decided to open Dessert Gallery, I knew I wasn't going to do it unless Danny would come back to work for me. And he did. And we've been together ever since.
It's so neat that, you have these long-term relationships that are so critical to how we function as people or business folks. And then, talking about business, I can't have someone on from the private business world without talking about COVID and its impact. Obviously, COVID has been going on or has been impacting us truly since March, if not sooner. What were some of the early changes that you had to make at Dessert Gallery to keep your business going, if you will?
I'll tell you this amazing story. So March 1st through 6th of this year, I was in Atlanta for a national bakery meeting, and nobody said a word about COVID. In fact, in one of our group meetings, we were talking to an employment expert, and I asked the only question. I said, has anybody heard of COVID, and are you doing anything about it? And literally the next week, March 13th, I remember because it was my birthday, the country shut down. And that just goes to show you how fast the world changed. And so obviously the world changed that fast, and the business had to change that fast. So immediately, working with gloves and masks and hand sanitizer, it's physically uncomfortable. It's hot, it's sticky, and it's hard to be, hospitable and gracious and everything. So, it's really hard work. to, keep up, a happy face, when you're sweating from working in a mask and trying, to be expressive to people and make them feel welcome and safe and everything. It's really difficult working conditions. And of course, our store operations changed. We shut down the dining room immediately. We tried to reopen sometime this summer, and it was just too difficult. Our space is too small to keep everybody 6 feet apart and to have tables. So thankfully, my goal for 2020 before COVID was always about new technology. And it was very fortuitous because that's how we exist now. And our technology, our in-store technology, our technology for our customers, it's all changed this year. We get sprayed every 2 weeks in 2 locations. So every time we get sprayed, it's probably about somewhere around $500 a location. So it's very expensive to do everything in my power to keep things safe for my staff and my customers. And the other thing I did at some point, I got everybody in the company tested and made the decision that if somebody got sick, I paid them not to come to work. So in other words, people didn't feel pressured to come to work, sick. And so the whole thing has been a huge financial burden, trying to keep everyone well and safe and taking every precaution I could think of. And, we're all making it up as we go. And you just have to, go in good faith every day and, try to do the best you can. And that's what we're doing.
That's right. And I think, I think we all know that the country, Texas, Harris County, however you look at it, there's a few 2 steps forward, a few steps back. We go back and forth. And I think you and the food industry have quite a challenge adjusting to the back and forth. Give us some examples. I think pull back the curtain a bit, if you will. What are some of the biggest challenges that you face in the food industry with some of the back and forth?
Well, it's so frustrating that as a small business that we were given 8 weeks of relief for a problem that has gone on so far for 9 months. And I thankfully, my business is doing well enough that I can take on all these extra added expenses and, we're doing okay. But it is just not easy. And my heart breaks every time I drive around the neighborhood and I see the numbers of businesses that haven't made it. And it's really heartbreaking because I know what goes into that. It's somebody's dream, it's somebody's life savings. And it's just, they were doing great before all this happened. And here we are. And I never dreamed we'd be back in such dire conditions 9 months later. And it's really, scary. And of course, we are in the food service business. So it's really important. We're here to serve people. And so we try really hard to be, charming and hospitable. But, as I said before, working in masks and gloves isn't totally conducive to that. But, most people are kind and give us a little extra leeway because they can see that we're, trying really hard. And of course, all the business processes that we've used for years, like that we use for the Thanksgiving holiday, when we know we're going to have hundreds of people in the store in the course of the day. Well, we can't do that like we have before. And so we have a big plan, and hopefully it's going to work great. We're going to do our best to take care of as many people as we can in their cars. And what can I say?
Crossed. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing is, the one thing that makes me really sad is usually the Wednesday before Thanksgiving is such a happening at Dessert Gallery, because people bring, their kids are in from college and they're out of town friends and family, and it's just a big love fest. And I love that. And, we're here to put peace, love, and sprinkles in Houston. And, we're not going to be able to do that this year. And I mean, I'm sure we're going to be busy, but of course it's going to be, people getting things to go. So it makes me sad not to be that place for, special gatherings this holiday season, but, life goes on.
Life goes on. And,
Life
one
goes
more
on.
COVID question before we kind of switch gears.
Yeah.
One question I always feel I need to ask is, what is going to stay long term? You mentioned you put some emphasis into the technological side, which I think a lot of people have been doing during COVID if they weren't already. But what are some of the other things that you think are really going to stick for your business going forward?
Well, as food service operators, we have to meet health standards set by the city and state every single day, and that's never going to change. I think curbside is here to stay. I think technology in food service is here to stay. I mean, thank heavens I studied sociology and computer science at the University of Texas, because holy cow, I am just deep in the technology these days. And it's certainly been helpful. I think a lot of our new operational processes are here to stay. And I think third-party delivery services are here to stay. Although we have, our goal is to wean ourselves off of third party. Hopefully at some point our own in-house technology will be so good that everybody will just want to order from us directly. Because one thing that the public has learned in the course of, COVID is that, holy cow, restaurants have to pay, 25 to 30% of the ticket to those, third-party apps. And it's super expensive. It's super expensive. I mean, you can't have a whole business and make money if all you're doing is third-party delivery.
Yeah, no, I think that is definitely one of the things we've learned, that third-party delivery takes away from the business, and then it's really nice when you're able to order direct, like you said. Changing topics a bit, somewhat. A few months ago, Dessert Gallery was actively promoting that individuals could register to vote at its location, and I know that you personally became a voter registrar here in Harris County. Obviously, Congregation Emanu really strive to become an 100% voting congregation, and getting people to vote and engage in that process. Big part of our platform this year. But why was this such an important pursuit to you as a person, and how were you able to use Dessert Gallery during this time to follow that pursuit?
Well, I love it. I feel so fortunate that I do have a platform where, when there's something that's important to me, I have this ready-made platform and can try to do my part to contribute in some way. And for the midterm elections in 2018, I had my little cousin, Dina Jo Lipper, had become a voter registrar. And so I invited her to come to Dessert Gallery to register people for the midterms. And so many people were so appreciative. They're like, oh my God, I just came in to get a cookie and now I can, register to vote and, get it all done. And so it turned out to be really convenient. And of course, in anticipation of the presidential election, it was just really important to me that everybody that was eligible to vote, that they they registered. And so I wanted to, do what I could. And so, we have, thousands of people go through the cafe every month. So I held a few drives, and I think I ended up registering over, like 200 or 300 people to vote in Harris County. And I feel really good that I was able to, make the world a little better that way.
That's really amazing.
And I love it that Emmanuel had that program. I loved being part of it. It was so exciting, to I was part of the 50th and I actually chaired the 50th anniversary historical program for Emmanuel. And then again, I did something for the 75th birthday. And really, such an integral part of Emmanuel's history is their social action, and the fact that they're willing to take a stand. It goes back to the founding, and it's such an incredible story. So I loved being part of that.
Well, we're very thankful for you as an individual registering so many people to vote. I think all of us know the importance that engaging in voter turnout and getting people engaged in the process makes, because once you get them in and they realize that their vote means something, they're going to vote again. And obviously I bring my little guy, or my wife did this year, to vote, and that's important to expose him. So again, super appreciative of your personal efforts. One thing that I think hovers below the radar is that we have one of our clergy members that has a item on the Passover menu at Dessert Gallery. Do you mind sharing with us how that came to be, and maybe some insight into what this item is? So I usually start thinking about Pesach next month. Maybe some people are looking further down the road. Passover is early this year. It is at the end of March. So what can you tell us?
Well, here's the scoop. So as I'm sure many people know, Rabbi Pam is an amazing cook. And we have lunch from time to time. And she was talking about this, Passover toffee that she makes. And I was like, wow, that sounds amazing. Would you come to my kitchen and teach us how to make it? And she did. I have pictures, and it was really fun. And every year we make Rabbi Pam's matzah toffee. And it's a big favorite for Passover Seders and for taking to Passover, kind of like as a hostess gift. And we donate the proceeds to Rabbi Pam's fund at the temple at the end of the holiday. So, it's not like $1 million or anything, but still, it's just fun to know that we learned to make it from the Rebbe, and that she took the time to come teach us, and it was really fun. She also taught us how to make hamantaschen.
Oh wow! Yeah,
I know.
I love hamantaschen. We'll have to get to Purim at some point soon too. But one of the questions I feel I had to ask is we've had two guests from New Orleans over the few months we've been doing this, and I couldn't resist asking them what their favorite restaurant or food in town is. And obviously New Orleans, good food reputation, but I feel I can't have you on without asking you specifically, what is your favorite dessert? I mean, we got to know, right? You got to spill the beans. So what's your favorite dessert and why?
You know what? My favorite dessert is whatever dessert is right in front of me.
Accessibility, I get that.
Yeah. And some of the desserts I've literally been making for 37 years. So, and so I have emotional ties to them. Like, you know, our chocolate chunk cookies that are dipped in chocolate, our brookies, our carmelitas. That's actually my mom's recipe. When she passed away, I have her recipe boxes, and sometimes when I'm really missing her, I like to open them up and just go through them and see her handwriting. And so one time I was going through there and I collected all the dessert recipes, and the carmelitas. Of course, she didn't call them carmelitas, but I call them carmelitas. And so they're a big favorite. I love seeing them when they're making big sheet pans of them in the kitchen. And of course, it makes me think of my mom. And I am a chocoholic. So one of my very favorites is our cosmic birthday cake, which has got like chocolate meringue and chocolate mousse and mocha mousse and ganache and like a pound of chocolate curls and gosh, what else? A brownie layer. It's so decadent and over the top. I love that one. And our brownie batter blowout sundae. It's these brownies that we don't bake all the way, and we serve it warm with either Amy's Mexican vanilla ice cream or Amy's dark chocolate ice cream. I prefer it with the dark chocolate ice cream. And our homemade bittersweet hot fudge. Holy cow, over the top.
And the problem is we're recording this before lunch. So David Tanner, who's watching this, myself, hopefully when this airs Wednesday at noon, people are eating lunch at the time, because whether it's, the sweet or savory, anything, I think hearing all the way you're describing food is just going to drive people up a wall.
And you know what? I do love it. I was really hoping I would be sick of it by now, and at least immune to it, like I could go through the kitchen and not be like moved to tears by a big bowl of frosting. But here it is 37 years later, and it still makes my heart go pitter patter.
Well, I'm pretty plain Jane, as most people know, but I love your vanilla cake and your apple pie brown Betty. Those are my
apple brown Betty. Sometimes I have that for breakfast.
That makes so much sense. I get that. I would love
it's totally good for
as
you.
A breakfast. Yeah, those are my two favorites. So a few more questions here. So I think collaboration and unique partnerships have definitely spurred about because of COVID. Whether it's because geographic barriers, to heck with them, because we can all get on Zoom or whatnot. But I really think in the last year or so, you've partnered with our preferred caterer, Houston Catering Concepts. Tell us a bit about that relationship and how Dessert Gallery contributes to what HCC does.
Well, first of all, Michael Sagian is one of the nicest guys ever. And it is such a pleasure to work with him. And he reminds me of myself, when I was young. And so I love, talking to him and helping him. And we coach each other. I don't want to make it sound like I'm the know-it-all in the relationship, but he's just such a nice person and does such a good job. Back when, we were both doing a lot of corporate catering, we were doing, desserts for his box lunches. Who knows if that kind of catering is ever going to come back, because who knows if people are going to be going back to their offices. So I don't know, who knows, but when things get back to normal, we'll be working together and as they do catering, we'll be doing desserts for them. And of course, he's opening up his new place in Bel Air. Their bakery is actually kosher, so we won't be putting desserts there. But when the restaurant opens up, we'll be working together on his desserts. So I'm super excited to work with such a nice person, a lawnsman, and somebody that's just fun to work with.
That's really neat. And then the last question, now that we're at our conclusion, I always like to ask our guests if there's necessarily, for people watching, if there's something to learn about Dessert Gallery, where can they go do it? If there's anything per se that we should be sharing from Dessert Gallery, upcoming opportunities. I know it's not time to vote or register, but that could be a thing later down the road. Where can people turn to?
Yeah, so we're on social media. We've got a website, dessertgallery.com. We're on Facebook and Instagram. And yeah, you can always find out what's happening, mostly on Instagram. I'm too old. I don't understand Instagram, but anyway, I have people much younger than myself who who work on that for us. And, I mean, it's so fun to walk through the kitchen and take beautiful pictures and to see them on social media because, I love sharing what we do. And, making the world a sweeter place is one of our company core values. And anytime we have the opportunity to do that, we're going to do it. And
it's interesting. I talk to a lot of people about social media and the best way to do it, and really trying to capture moments. And the great thing about working at a bakery is there's so many different things to capture. People doing different things, or the food items that you were displaying verbally earlier. I think there's something appealing and alluring, and it helps with the algorithms. I always talk about the algorithm.
There's something so magical about it. Even, though I've been doing this literally my whole life, it's just magic. It's really magic. And like, you should see like a gigantic bowl of, frosting or fruit or nuts or chocolate, or it's beautiful. It's really gorgeous. So yeah.
Well, Sara, I want to thank you for your time. We've had a lot of people who are really excited about this. They thought it aired last week, but it's airing the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So thank you for coming on today. This has been fun. I think people are really going to enjoy learning more about you and hearing about particularly what your favorite desserts are at the Dessert Gallery. So thank you.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks again to Sara for coming on. We got to thank Max the puppy. I think he made an appearance early on, just like Sammy does when I am live from my house. Definitely thanks to David Tanner behind the scenes, who always helps us out and does what he can. And for those who like watching our conversation series, be in the lookout. We'll publicize this on our Facebook and our various communications. We have a few things, irons in the fire, if you will. But we're not going to be weekly in December, as there's a lot going on for Hanukkah and other happenings around the community. So be on the lookout. And of course, as a reminder, if you've missed any previous episode, you can always catch prior episodes on our Emanu YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us. It is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And we'll see you around the synagogue before long. Take care.